Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Femme Fatale. And today we have a lovely guest with us. I'm really, really excited to have him on with us. And because we're an inspirational channel and we talk about inspiration and achievements and everything else, I decided to have Chris Wyatt on because I know he's achieved quite a lot through his life and can give us a rundown of what he's been through. How are you, Chris?
I'm well, thank you. Sorry, I was just getting a call. I'm just telling them to leave me alone.
Murphy's people always want to call it the wrong time.
They do. Fortunately, I keep my phone on silent. Otherwise, it'd be a disaster. Sorry about that. Just going to send it back. It's a call from overseas. So I just, they take
No
trouble call from
problem.
overseas. Anyway, yeah. So you were saying, how am I? I'm okay. Older.
Older than yesterday.
Yeah. By the way, let's see. Keratin. Yeah. Okay. I got that one. It's a Kindle, but that's a trick question because actually you said kittens. That was the key because a grouping of
Yeah.
cats is a clouder or a glaring. And so, yeah, but kittens is a Kindle. So yeah. Okay. So I was watching.
Okay, was that the spot check?
Yeah. I just no, it's like a trick question. You're like, these are easy, and then they come out with trick questions. But yeah, some of them were very easy. But yeah, that was a trick question because to be fair, because you had to pay attention to kittens. That was the key. It's kittens. If you'd said cats, we
Yes.
would have. Hey, Johan, how's it going?
I actually blame Johan for the questions because he actually got the questions. So I have somebody to blame. So, Chris, tell us a little bit about yourself. What did you actually do? How did you get into it?
Sure. I in my high school years lived on a small farm in rural Appalachia, which is one of the historically for centuries long poor parts of America along the Appalachian Mountains in the east coast of the United States, running from Georgia all the way up to Maine. But the poor portion runs pretty much from western Pennsylvania down to North Carolina. So that's pretty much where most of poor folks live. But I lived on a small farm, a dairy farm, and milked cows and collected eggs from chickens and took care of pigs and baled hay and all that stuff. And I didn't have any money and didn't enjoy that very much. I mean, the farming I didn't mind. I enjoyed the work, but not having any money was kind of sucky. So I
Yeah.
didn't know what to do with my life. And this was after the disastrous Jimmy Carter presidency, which was an absolute disaster for the U.S. and for the world and for geopolitical events. And I was in high school and I wasn't sure what to do. So I figured, well, gosh, I guess I'll just join the Army. I mean, what else is there to do? Unemployment in my county at the time was 26%. If you didn't own a farm or you weren't the son or daughter of a farmer, then you're pretty much screwed. So there were no jobs. So I decided to go in the Army. But a couple of teachers in high school said, well, why are you going to the Army? You're a pretty smart kid. Why don't you get my grades didn't reflect that, by the way. I was a B student, so I was above average, but not exceptional. Well, I was busy, milking cows and trying to play sports. It was kind of hard. So I didn't focus on grades. But they said, no, you're a smart kid. You should go to university. There's a big world out there. And I'm like, how? I mean, it costs money. How am I supposed to go? And one of my, this is like two, these teachers, they go to the teacher's lounge, they talk about kids in school. Yeah, this one's a pain in this one, that one's got promise. So, so obviously they were talking about me in the teacher's lounge at some point. And so a couple of them came to me and they said, yeah, you should go to the guidance counselor's office. You can find out about grants and loans and scholarships and things like that. And I'm thinking, my grades aren't good enough for a scholarship, but I was poor enough that I qualified for full financial assistance. So I wound up getting a full student loan, which at the time was not handled by the federal government, by banks. So the federal government sponsored it so that you would get the loan, but it was with the bank. So I got a full student loan, which in those days was the shockingly high total of $2,500. And I discovered there's no, yeah, exactly. Yeah. I discovered there's no such thing as a free lunch because before I walked out of the bank took $268 away from me. I'm like, what's this for? Oh, that's the government's fee. What do you mean the government's fee? Well, yeah, the government makes money off of all these loans. You didn't know that? I'm like, nope, I didn't know that. So right out of the gate, the U.S. government already made 268. They made almost 10%. Well, they made over 10% of my loan amount before I walked out of the door. So I never got that amount. And then on top of that, when I pay the bank back, people today complain about paying, 2% interest on their student loans. My student loan was at 9%. 9%.
Sure,
Which
that's
was,
high.
which was actually a bargain because at the time the prime lending rate was like 13 or 14%. So that was just how bad things were. So I enrolled in university. I applied to 3 schools. I applied to Central State University, which is a historically black school in Ohio, and I applied to Purdue. Purdue was out of state. There was no application fee. Central State, there's no application fee, and it was away from where I was at. So I thought I'd try it. And where I really wanted to go is Ohio University, but it didn't have the $25 for the application fee. So my high school guidance counselor called the admissions office and said, listen, can you waive the application fee? He's a good student, and he's indigent, and his family's dirt poor. And so they did. So they waived the application fee. I applied to Ohio University, and that's where I got accepted. I got a full student loan, a full federal grant, and a full state grant. It still wasn't enough. I worked bussing tables and, cleaning crap off the floors and, serving food at university. But it was enough to go to school. So I went to school. But I didn't really apply myself and had a lot more fun doing other things and went to classes I enjoyed, which wasn't most of them. And after 2/3 of the year, we were on a quarter system. So you had 3 quarters, not 2 semesters. The summers is 4th quarter. Almost nobody goes. But so 3 quarters, fall, winter, spring. And already into the middle of winter quarter, halfway through the year, I was like, And by spring quarter, I was running out of money. I'm like, this isn't cool. So I started looking at options. I couldn't enlist in the Army. I wanted to listen to the National Guard because they pay for all your tuition. That would have saved me a lot of money, and I would have had some money. But they were full up. They wouldn't take me. So I decided, to hell with it, I'll join the Army. So I joined the Army, and I got stationed at choice, which meant a theater. And the theater was Europe. I wanted to go to Germany, so I got that. They had told me that if you work really hard, you could probably get a degree while you're on active duty by going to school at night and on weekends. So I did that, and it worked out. It wasn't easy, but over the course of 3 years in Germany, I earned an associate's degree. And then I came back to school and I finished my 4-year program in about 2 years. But I was on the academic probation list because my grades were so abysmal. So we have a 4-point system.
Oh, yeah.
And I had a 1.52. So that's, 2 would be a C, passing. So it was substandard. Anyway, I came back and I never got less than like a 3.75, 3.8 after that, and raised my grade point average. So I graduated with high honors when I finished 2 years later. So came in the Army as an intelligence officer, and then served 3 tours in Europe, 1 in Italy, and then in Africa. I served in Tunisia, Liberia, Botswana, Malawi, Nigeria, Mauritania, Uganda, Ethiopia. While I was in college, I was a disc jockey at a radio station. And when I got out of the Army, interesting story, the Army, I was looking at re-enlisting and staying in the Army rather than going back to university, which is the reason I enlisted, to get more money for university and become an officer. But I decided, let me see what the Army's got to offer for an enlisted soldier. And one of the things they offered me was broadcast journalist. You're going to like this story. So so I had to go to the Armed Forces Network. Now it's called American Forces Network. I guess we can't be armed anyway. But the Armed Forces Network in Frankfurt, and I'm supposed to do an audition tape. So the guy says, here, sit down. Let me read this script so I can get some levels. So he hands me a script, and I just read off the paper, not like I was actually on air. I'm like, and so 3 trains crashed today, and 35 people dead. Somebody goes, okay, great, thanks. I'm like, what do you mean? Oh, no, I got it. That's good. I'm like, yeah, but I was just giving you levels. He goes, no, it's fine. Don't worry. Everybody gets this. Don't worry about it. So they send it into, they send it into Fort Ben Harrison, the recording. And 3 weeks later, I get a message back, not entry-level broadcast material. So they turned me down to go to school to be a journalist in the Army. I was like, huh? Anyway, so he said, don't worry about it. You can do it again. So I went back after 30 days. I did another tape. This time I was nervous because I'm like, everything's riding on this. And I screwed it. And I screwed it up this time. So they said, not entry level. So eventually I'm like, enough of this stuff. So I got out. The end of this story is that 2 days after I got out of the Army, I was back in Ohio. And my brother-in-law was an engineer at a radio station, a commercial radio station that makes money. I said, hey, listen, your sister said you used to be an on-air personality when you were in college before. I said, yeah, that was a while ago. Well, they're looking for someone down here at the radio station. Would you mind coming down and being interviewed? So I went down to Middleport, Pomeroy, Ohio, down on the river, about a half hour, 40 minutes from where I was living at the university. I walked in, and the guy said, station manager, hey, so just hop in the booth real quick and join, I don't know, the guy's name was Brian or something like that. Join Brian in the studio. And he was talking about the news and talking about events in the local area. And so I just popped on some headphones, sat down in front of a microphone, and just started chatting. And we talked for a good part of that hour. I walked out of there, and he goes, when can you start? And so the Army said I wasn't entry-level broadcast material. Yet 2 days after I got out of the Army, I had a paying gig as a radio broadcast personality. So, what does the Army know? I tried to become a counterintelligence agent because I was interested in that. And I was interviewed by counterintelligence agents who said that I was immature and could not communicate effectively in English. That's what he said. Now, this was a guy who was taking a college class with me at night, and he got almost a failing grade, and I got an A in that class. He told me I could. So after my packet came back, because the retention NCO, the one that reenlisted you, was like, "Oh, your packet's great. I've never seen a packet this strong. Your scores are high. Your evaluations are great. You're really well qualified for this. You're going to get it." And then I didn't get it. And then later, you get, oops, all right, that's my alarm to remind me that I have to get ready for my show. Yeah, so I always have about 10 after just to make sure I'm ready for it. But anyway, so that agent who interviewed me, you get the packet back, and I read his recommendation was a non-recommendation, and he said those things. So I went and asked him. I said, Sergeant Binge, and he was a sergeant first class. I said, and I was a sergeant. And I said, I got my packet back, and I saw what you wrote. I'm just curious, how many people have you interviewed, and how many have become CI agents, counterintelligence agents? He said something like 38 so far over the years. I said, well, how many? None of them. What an ass. So he thought his mission.
I wouldn't be proud of that.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't be proud of it. He was proud of keeping people from becoming agents. I'm like, what kind of jackass is that? So here's the irony. I went to university. I became a commissioned officer. And as a second lieutenant, I outrank him as a sergeant first class the day that I pinned on my butter bar. And then I saw him at the intelligence school when I was back there, and I outranked him. And the irony is, later on, I became a counterintelligence agent, did several espionage investigations, and did lots of different things. So anyway, so that's just a little smattering of some of the things I've done.
Wow, that's quite a lot. So what year did you come to South Africa as Central Intelligence?
Oh, no. I never came to South Africa in an intelligence role. I've been to South Africa hundreds of times, either on holiday or for official business. I have been to South Africa official business, both with my embassy and with the SANDF. But no, I've never been there in an intelligence role. I've been other places in intelligence role, lots of other places. Yeah.
Okay. I see somebody's asking here, does Chris have any James Bond kind of stories from his counterintelligence operations?
Well, if I did and I told you about it, we'd have to send someone to your door.
We will find you.
That's right. You know, it's become very easy for counterintelligence to actually do their job these days because of social media and mobile phones. We can find you anywhere. And if you think we can't, you're crazy. And if you think you turn off your phone keeps you from being found, surprise, surprise.
They'll get a big surprise.
Exactly.
Jana, I think that's where technology has just made it so much easier for law enforcement and CIA and all those sort of things to actually do their jobs, what they're supposed to be doing, a lot better than what they could in the old days. I think it's made a huge improvement to everything.
Well, it has from that standpoint, but from a defendant standpoint, all this technology has also made you much more vulnerable from the standpoint that people can learn things about you and track you down and find you. But not just that, but if people want to frame you or set you up or tarnish your reputation, it's very easy to do. You say something quite innocuous, and it can be taken completely out of context. Or people, even now with deep fakes, you know, it's not even you. They take your visage and they actually put things in a video or whatever. Plus, you know, if someone contacts you and you're not even engaged with them, people will take that as, oh, look at like your partner is doing this or doing that, and they're not at all. It's just someone else, and there's an electronic record of it. So people say, aha. Yeah. It's in the old days, it would be somebody lying or making something up or faking documents. And that's usually a lot easier to figure out. The lying, not necessarily, but you could do an investigation and go, wait, I had an officer that worked for me. His wife accused him of molesting his daughters, and he never did. She was so stupid because she didn't like him. She wanted to get even with him. The dates that she gave, she claimed that he was molesting his daughters. He was in Afghanistan, and it took all of 5 minutes to confirm that he never left Afghanistan. So she was just that stupid. She forgot the dates and just went and made this stupid claim because she wanted a divorce and she wanted to nail him with alimony. And so, yeah. But what happened to that officer? He was a senior officer. He lost his security clearance. His reputation was tarnished, and he never did anything wrong just because of false accusations. Now that's the old days. These days, just a screen capture or, a video or something like that. And then also people are just so lazy. I mean, there was a thing a couple months ago where somebody took me. It was back in May when I interviewed Phil Craig from the Cape Independence Advocacy Group. I interviewed him, and they took the first 2 minutes when I was describing who Phil was at the beginning. Before he came on, I said, "This is Phil Craig." That part, they didn't take that. I said, "Yes," and I started talking about his background, and they took my 1 minute 50 some seconds. They put it on a Twitter feed, and they described me as some fake South African, pretend South African. I'm actually a Brit and all this stuff. I'm like, well, wait a second. First off, You're using my video without my permission. That's a copyright infringement, number one. Number two,
Yeah.
you're completely wrong. I'm not South African. I never claimed to be South African. I'm a known personality. I'm a public figure. Do 5 seconds of research. You'll find out that I'm not South African. And what you've done is you've taken the introduction to an interview to disparage my guest, and you've disparaged me. Please remove it. To their credit, they took it down. But that's rare. Usually they just blow you off.
Yeah. So you've got, I'm sure a lot of the viewers that are watching currently know that you have your own YouTube channel. Guys, if you don't know, then please go check out Chris Wyatt's channel. It's a really, really interesting channel. I like that you do the 2 streams at the 2 different times. I enjoy that because sometimes you can't always catch the earlier stream and sometimes you can't catch the later one. So you've got the choice of the 2. So it's absolutely fantastic. Chris has a lot of information that he can share, very informative. So please go check out Chris Wyatt's channel if you haven't already and go and subscribe. And if you're here and you haven't been here before, please subscribe as well.
Yeah, please do that. But are you sure I have a YouTube channel? I haven't checked in the last half hour. I could have been blocked by YouTube by now.
Yeah, it's actually terrible that they're doing all of this censorship, and it's actually quite scary if you think of us YouTubers in the future and the way forward, because now we kind of like panicking a little, thinking, okay, well, where do we go from here? Because now you
and I, the small fry, no pun intended, small fry, but you and I, the small fry,
smaller than you.
No, I meant from
you
a
got
surname
like 22,000. Yeah, fry, yes.
Yeah,
but you've got 22,000 subscribers. I'm not even on 300. So I'm like way smaller than you.
Well, but both of us are very small fry. I mean, there's people with tens of millions of subscribers on there, but we really have no recourse. They can just punish us at their will. And for me, I didn't intend to make my channel monetized, but honestly, and I think some people don't believe this, but it's a fact. At least 48 people, I kept track of it. And that's back when I had a few hundred subscribers, were saying, when are you going to monetize? When are you going to monetize? They kept asking. And like Hendo kept asking, when are you going to have merchandise? And so I got merchandise. He hasn't bought any. but
Murphy, hey?
Yeah,
Murphy.
Exactly. But so before I monetize, so what I'm getting is a small fry like us, there's not much we can do. But where I was going with this is with the monetization, the super chats, it's not a business as such, but it does form a small portion of revenue for my actual consultancy business down on the side. So basically what YouTube does when they censor is they damage my business. Now, I'm too small to sue a multi-billion-dollar company worth nearly $1 trillion. But they are messing around with President Trump, who's a billionaire. They blocked 2 of his commercials today. They're messing around with Dinesh D'Souza, who's got millions of dollars. They're messing around with all these people who have a lot of money. At some point, some of these people are going to be hot full and they're going to sue Google, and they're likely to win because they're damaging businesses and business potential. And when people find out and dig under the hood and find out all the nasty little tricks doing, like I've lost 30 some subscribers in the last 2 days. And every time I go in, it's fewer subscribers. I haven't done anything or produced any content that would scare people away. What's going on there? So exactly. if people
have the
dig
same. Maybe not as much, but I'll like just have suddenly 3 subscribers drop, and you're like, I haven't even streamed today, so how?
Right. Exactly.
Doesn't make sense.
So eventually, some of these people that have the resources are going to take them to task and sue them. And I suspect that they'll win. I mean, I'm not an attorney, but I mean, to me, they've damaged their business. If you've not violated community standards, and YouTube is openly doing this, they're saying, we're taking down videos because we've decided that you reporting factual information, this is not their words, these are my words, you reporting factual information about an election that's in dispute is not acceptable because the safe harbor date has been reached and Joe Biden's the president. Well, number one, they're factually wrong. The safe harbor date on the 8th of December doesn't mean Joe Biden's anything other than a brain dead, feckless communist stooge. That's all it means. On the 14th of December is when the Electoral College meets. And even then, it's not a done deal because it goes to the Congress by the 19th. And then Congress meets the first week of January. When Congress votes, the joint session, then we have a president-elect. Before then, we don't have a president-elect. And so for them to make an arbitrary decision on the 8th of December and start censoring videos, which they were already doing ahead of that, but to delete accounts is just unacceptable. And they're getting away with it, and they're damaging people's livelihoods and incomes and reputations. And they think they can't be sued. They may not be able to be sued because they're protected about the content you and I create, because of Section 230, but they can be sued for damaging businesses by breaking they're the ones breaking the current terms and conditions of community standards, not the content creators. Now, Salty Cracker, that guy, they could go after him and say, that guy's been breaking the rules, but I've been breaking the rules. I've never spread anything false. I never spread hate. None of that stuff. So I follow the rules. They shouldn't be messing with my channel. So anyway, what's this?
No, I agree with you.
Question here.
It's Corona's boring. Says, how does Chris rate the SA military and police intelligence nowadays?
South African military has declining pockets of excellence. Very few places that is capable of doing its mission. For the past 20 years, whenever they've done peacekeeping, they're completely incapable of sending a unit. And that's important. You build units for cohesion and teamwork and esprit so that when something happens and people start shooting, the guy or gal on your left and right, you can count on them. You've trained together, the reactions, it's routine. But when you have to grab soldiers from SAA 1, SAIA 2, 3, 7, then you have to get a female commander officer from the Navy because you haven't got anybody that's not HIV positive. You cobble together a unit, you send it off, you have nothing but trouble. So South African peacekeeping units have done well on occasion. But more often you find South Africans in the Congo selling weapons and running prostitution rings and things like that. It's really unfortunate. You also have all kinds of issues because of the idiotic quota system. People are not promoted based on merit in SANDF. They're promoted based on quotas. And so something like 20% of the officers must be white. Why? They're not even 20% of the population. That's stupid. How about 100% or 10% or 50%? It doesn't matter. You pick the best people. And if you produce If you produce an education system that produces literate, clear thinking, cogent, critical thinkers, then you'll have by default a wide spread of people across the ethnic spectrum. But when you have the nonsense you have in South Africa, you pick people who are not capable of the role, either from an intelligence standpoint or a thinking standpoint or a leadership standpoint, and you get a disaster. So there are pockets of excellence in the SANDF, declining, very few left. And the South African Police Service is just utterly a disaster. All you have to do is look at the crime in South Africa and know that South African police intelligence is useless. Either they're useless or the police are intentionally and willfully not pursuing intelligence to take out gangsters and to take out these syndicates that are murdering farmers and farm workers and these cash in transit heists that are all run by syndicates by and large. I mean, guys don't rock up in a brand new bucky with 7 guys in the back armed with Kalashnikovs and jump out in broad daylight and then execute the guard who offers no resistance. He just drops the money, stands there, they push him to the ground and put a bullet in the back of his head. Why? Because he was white. That's why they murdered him. That's not normal. And for the police, for people on the street to record this on a mobile device and the police not to know about this and not, anyway, it's just, I go on this for hours, but the police intelligence is just garbage. And this all started, I was opposed to the Scorpions. I thought the Scorpions was a bad idea because it's an extrajudicial, extra legal mechanism, but they were armed with the power for subpoenas, for warrants, for arrest, detention, and prosecution. I'm like, that's a lot of power to put in somebody's hands. That's dangerous in democracy. But you know what? Leonard McCarthy and the Scorpions never abused their authority, and they did a fantastic job until they started identifying ANC corrupt politicians, and then they were a threat, and they were disbanded. And so they were replaced with the Chicken Hawks, and the Chicken Hawks are useless.
Yeah, I must be honest, the way things that go down now, it's completely different to what it was 10 years ago.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, and what I find, okay, but look, let's speak on a honest level here. Because to be quite frankly honest with you, I personally don't feel that our police force is supported enough by our government. I don't think our police officers get paid correct salaries. And I think that's where the bribery comes in. Because I think if they were paid enough money, I don't think the bribery would be an issue.
Yeah, well, no, I've talked about this many, many times, both in prepared videos and speeches I've given places. The bottom line of law enforcement around the world is you don't pay a law enforcement officer a living wage, not even a plush wage, just a living wage, then you force corruption. I mean, if I look at police officers in Liberia, when I lived there, they were making $63 US per month. And families, a bag of rice was $18, but because commodity prices, it went up to $63 for a bag of rice. So the entire salary would have bought 1 bag of rice. What are they supposed to do? Eat that bag of rice for the whole month, their whole family? So, in the SAP's case, there's a number of problems. Number one, they are not funded sufficiently. Number two, they don't devote the proper resources to forensics and investigation for detectives so we can actually get chain of custody evidence, process it, and convict people in the South African injustice system. So that's another thing. They don't pay police enough of salary so they can make a decent living. And on top of that, they are woefully inadequately trained when it comes to civil relations. And so the police are bullies and thugs and abusive far more often than they're polite, respectful, and contributing members of society. And that's just a fact. And it extends through the government, and especially is anytime you get a low level. Not anytime, but often. There are plenty of low-level employees in these services that are not like this, but plenty of low-level, especially Black South African members of the government like to use that position of abuse and to harass people who are not people of color because now I'm in charge. They're petty tyrants. And we see this with DERCO all the time at border crossings in which they take people and because they were too lazy to scan their passport, they just looked at it and passed it on. Then they come back in the country like, oh, you've been here for 5 years. No, I just entered last week. Well, there's no record of it. Well, yeah, you took my passport. Look at the camera.
Yeah.
No. Nope. And then they put you in the system as an undesirable immigrant and you can't come back to the country. They do this to people in Lesotho, in Swaziland, in Namibia, in Botswana, in Zimbabwe, every damn day of the week. And there's tens, if not hundreds of thousands of people who are criminally, illegally denied entry into South Africa by these feckless little, petty tyrants. And that extends to the police service. You find that a lot. But they have to pay them properly, they have to train them properly, and they have to equip them properly. I mean, it's embarrassing to see some of the equipment that SAPs have to chase after people. And you have to arm them properly.
It's true.
Instead of having a cop with a revolver, you ought to have a SWAT team that has automatic weapons, body armor, and explosive devices that can take out these cash and transitize. Until you do that, people are going to keep getting murdered. So yeah, that's so I will defend the lack of support from the government for SAPs, but it doesn't excuse the conduct or the political appointment of criminal hacks like Jackie Salibe, and now we see, what's his name, the Ace? What's the guy?
Ace Magashula.
No, he's not. He's not the cop. Who's the top cop? Bekele. Yeah, that jackass. Sitting in the Senegal courtroom with his little buddy there, Juju.
That man. Ooh.
Did you see Juju? Hang on.
Did you get him a red hat at least this time?
I got him a beret. Say hi to Julius. Julius says hi. He has a beret now.
I love the beret. It's so awesome.
Every day is a parade in the EFF.
That's for sure. But I mean, I definitely see what you're saying from like a training point of view, because I mean, okay, if I look at, let's just give an example like Johan. I mean, he works in Black Ops. So obviously they get proper training and all of that sort of thing. And he's trained in using firearms and rifles and the whole works. And they have to do an annual
competency recertification.
Yes. Yeah. And I mean, they're going for constant training and everything. And I don't think our police force has that. I mean, there's so many times where he says to me, he sees a police officer and he reckons he could literally just walk up to that officer and take his firearm straight out of his hands. Like,
well, I mean, we also have all this problem with a lot of firearms that are used in murders and robberies are police firearms, and then they magically reappear in police custody. So, I mean, if they're police firearms and they're stolen and never show up again, that's one thing. But obviously, they're being rented out or loaned out or given to people so that they can commit crimes, which makes the police complicit in it. Not all the police, but also the entire SAPS is infiltrated with this political correctness and this racist policy of discriminating against minorities, and so. That's also a problem. There are good police officers. There are plenty of them. And there are plenty who put their lives at risk to protect South Africans. But there are not enough police officers. They're not funded well enough. They're not trained. And I see this in many of my interactions with law enforcement in South Africa. I see far too often that instead of de-escalating a situation, police inflame and escalate situations. And they're the proximate cause of injuries or arrest when nothing should have happened. Now, let's be honest, people intoxicated especially, but people oftentimes get kind of lippy with law enforcement when they shouldn't be, but that doesn't mean it should lead to an arrest. If you're trained properly, law enforcement know how to de-escalate those situations in most cases. And that's what should happen. The police are not supposed to be there to oppress or antagonize society. They're there to ensure that people are behaving. And there are ways to do that short of locking people up and making them criminals.
No, I agree with you. And look, I must be honest, I always say to people, if you get pulled over by the cops, always be respectful. Because it gets you so much further being respectful than automatically start fighting. But I also understand where people come from as well. I mean, I once got pulled over and they said to me, "Oh, you didn't stop at the stop streets," and I know for a fact that I did, because I stopped for a car to go across this way.
Right.
So when she pulled me over and said to me, "You didn't stop at the stop street," I was like, "I'm sorry, officer, but I did, because I stopped for that red car to go across." And she argued with me, and I just said to her, "You know what? Just give me the fine. It's fun." And then she still wanted to escalate, because I think she wanted a bribe, but I wasn't going to accept the bribe.
Of course, yeah.
I don't give into bribery and corruption. Rather give me the fine. I'll go and sort it out. But no.
Yeah, no, I've never. In all my years in Africa, I've never paid a bribe. I refused. But to be fair, up until recently, I always had a diplomatic or an official passport. So if someone tried to get a bribe from me, I'm like, yeah, you're not getting a bribe. Sorry, you can talk all day long. You can talk all day long. You're not getting somebody. I was in Maputo once, and in Mozambique, and there's a restaurant there that was run by a South African. It was the only decent place in town to eat at the time. This is a long time ago. And so I drove away, and I turned left and went down this boulevard. And there's nothing going on. I was just driving around to see what's happening. And I was probably about 10 o'clock at night. I had not been drinking, because if I have one drop of drink, I don't drive. So I had nothing to drink, just, Coke or something like that. So I drive down the street and I go probably about 400 meters, and I'm like, there's nothing here. It was right in the center of town. It was dead. So I decided to turn around and go back to my hotel, which is down on the water. And so I signaled and I turned, but I couldn't turn until I got further, because they kept having these signs that said no U-turn. And then the sign was gone, and so I did a U-turn. I came back, and when I came back, now the police were on this side of the road, and of course it's like South Africa, it's the left. You guys drive on the wrong side of the road, so I was on the wrong side of the road. So I went down and turned around and came, and they stopped me and came up, and they asked for my passport, and they said, in their broken English, they said, you made an illegal turn. I said, no, I didn't. I made a legal turn. There's 3 spots where I couldn't turn. I went to the 4th one, and they said, no, you have to pay a fine. You're South African. I said, I'm not South African. I said, look at my passport. It's an American passport. No, you're South African. Your car's from South Africa. Yeah, it's a hire.
Yeah, it's a rental car there.
Yeah, but they barely spoke Portuguese, and they couldn't speak English very well, and I didn't speak whatever they spoke, and so 45 minutes, and they're like, if you don't pay us now, you come to police station and go to jail. I said, no. I said, I'm here on official business. Let's call the American embassy. No, embassy closed Saturday. I'm like, no, embassy open. Marine there 24 hours a day. Here, I've got a mobile phone. Let's call the Marines. And then they were like stumped. They're like, but they wouldn't let me go initially. Finally, they came back, and they just gave my passport and let me leave. But I wasn't going to look. I empathize with them. They probably don't have any money. They're not getting paid properly. But that doesn't make that behavior acceptable. And when you do that, when you pay it, I actually had a Nigerian general in my class at the War College a couple years ago. He was a colonel then. By the way, he's been arrested for corruption now. He's being charged in Nigeria. But he was taking bribes. But after he left the War College, when he became a general, because once we became general, he had more power. But we were in class, and I had all my African students and all my American students in there. And I was talking about corruption in Africa, and I talked about something called the auto stop. And the auto stop is well known in West Africa. It's when police, gendarmerie, or military stop you and demand that you give them a ride. And if you don't, they'll arrest you, harass you. Yeah. And I said, that's corruption. And so the Nigerian says, excuse me, Colonel Wyatt, no, that's not corruption. I said, why is, and all the Africans turn to look at him like, what are you talking about? That's not corruption. Because they've probably dealt with it before. And they're like, I said, well, please explain. What do you mean? How is it not corruption? Listen, people accept that. So it's not corruption. I'm like, that doesn't mean it's not corruption. That just means people accept illicit behavior. And she said, how is it corruption? I said, well, let me explain how it's corruption. I own that vehicle. I must maintain it, keep it safe for operation. So I do maintenance on it. I put the petrol in it. I use it for my business. You have stopped me as a gendarmerie and demanded I give you a ride in my vehicle and take you somewhere else. Well, that's an informal, illegal tax. Did you do that to another vehicle? Did you do that? People don't have vehicles. Do they have to pay that? Because it costs me time and resources. And never mind the fact that you're climbing into my car with weapons and things that could damage my upholstery. And what if you have a misfire? What if you cause me to have an accident or something like that because you stopped me illicitly? That's corrupt. Corruption isn't simply taking money from someone. It's also taking their time and services and imposing illegal taxes or using someone's resources because no one else was being charged that tax, only me. Now, it happened to me in Ivory Coast and Cote d'Ivoire, and I got pulled over and by some military, and they wanted a ride. And I said, well, I don't have to give you a ride. Yeah, you do. I mean, no, I don't. And they started getting difficult with me. I said, listen, I'll give you a ride because I'd like to have a conversation with you. This is in French because I was working on my French. And like, oh, yeah, whatever. So they got in the vehicle, switched driving, and then we drive a little ways and they find out that I'm a captain. And suddenly their behavior changed. Oh, you're a captain in the Army. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Suddenly they were very different. But yeah, no, it's corruption. So anyway, I guess we're getting far away from accomplishments, but these are kind of war stories. Hope people like them.
No, I think it's still interesting. I think people are still interested. So I see there's a lot of banter going on in the chat. So it's fun. But now tell me, I wanted to ask you on my stream here, you met Elvis Presley.
I did.
My mom is like the biggest fan of Elvis Presley.
Your mom is?
Hugest, yeah.
No, Elvis is amazing. And see, as a kid, I didn't know that he sang gospel. I'm not really into gospel, but my goodness, Elvis's gospel recordings could get me into gospel. He was so amazing, such a talent. It's really a shame that when celebrities get so big like that, and all these people glom onto them. And I mean, Prince died way too young, long before he should have died. Elvis died long before he should have died. It's just really sad. Michael Jackson. Whatever, but Elvis was amazing. I remember him as a little kid. I was a small kid. I must have been like 4 years old or something like that. And I still remember him. He was really cool. I used to joke that I knew fat Elvis, but he wasn't fat then. He hadn't quite bloated at that point. So, but yeah, no, he was a really nice guy, what I remember as a 4-year-old. So there's not a lot of memories from that age that you retain, into adulthood. But I remember Elvis, and I remember living down there and running around Graceland. It was really cool. So it's a shame he went. And I remember exactly what, people always like, I know what I was doing when Kennedy died. I know what I was doing well, there's 2 things in life that I definitely remember. I'll never forget. Well, 3 things, actually, I should say. When Elvis died, I know exactly. Whoa, that was very loud. My computer stopped telling me there's an update. But the first thing, it's another browser is telling me there's an update. But when Elvis died, I know exactly what I was doing. I was painting a bicycle on the front lawn on Oakthorpe Road in Fairfield County, Ohio. My mother came out and said Elvis died, and I was heartbroken because I loved Elvis. So that one's the first one. The second one is when the Challenger blew up in 1986. I was cleaning my rifle in the day room after coming back from the weapons qualification range in Germany, and I was watching live because I'm really into space and exploration, and I watched it blow up, and I was like, oh, I actually think I cried, if I remember correctly. It's really sad. And then the third one is 9/11. I was in the attaché office in Tunis, and one of the gunnery sergeants said, hey, Mike, come here, take a look at this. And or was I major already? I'm trying to remember. No, I'm trying to remember if I was a major. No, I wasn't. I got promoted right after that. Anyway, the next month I got promoted. So I was a captain. And so I went over and looked at television. And he said, do you see this? It looks like an accident. I'm like, Gunny, look around. You can see for 30 miles. How can anybody by accident, unless they had a heart attack, fly into a building? And that doesn't look like a small propeller. That looks like a commercial aircraft at that building. And then as we're standing there, of course, with me and Zara, we watched the second plane come into it. So those are the 3 events in life. I'll never forget that exactly what I was doing in those moments. But Elvis is one of them. That was the first one. He died in 78. Is that right? I think 78. So I was, yeah. So 78, I would have been not around 14, not quite 14 yet. So yeah.
I wasn't even born yet.
You're not supposed to say that. That just makes people mad.
Now, I remember 9/11. I was actually in high school in 9/11 in Malawi.
Stop this. I heard this on your trick question session there when you're trying to trick people into saying cloud or glaring about cats. But I heard you say Malawi. What's this Malawi connection? It's the warm heart of Africa.
Yes, I actually loved Malawi. My mom worked for Illovo Sugar. And we went there, So she went there for work on a contract as an expat. Mm-hmm. And I went with her. And I attended St. Andrews International High School in Blantyre in Malawi. And we were there for about 2 years. I loved it there.
So you've probably been to Riles then, the hotel?
Riles?
Well, it's a Protea hotel. I think it's called Riles. Or maybe I'm pronouncing it wrong. It's the oldest hotel there in Blantyre. It's a Protea hotel now.
I saw it, yes, but we never actually physically went in there. We stayed on the estate in the valley itself, and it is extremely hot in the valley. The valley was crazy hot, but we never went like Lilongwe side, or we were only Blantyre and then down in the valley. We pretty much stayed where we were, but every 3 months we had to fly out for 2 weeks. We weren't allowed to stay there permanently. So that was quite interesting. Every 3 months I had to leave school for 2 weeks. But and then they got me a student visa. Mm-hmm. So then I didn't have to go anymore. But we ended up actually leaving because my mom couldn't handle the malaria anymore. She was down
Yeah.
every second week with malaria. So it just got a bit much.
No, I always took prophylaxis when I was there. So, I mean, knock on wood. And in my decades of being in Africa, I've never gotten malaria. The prophylaxis and then personal protection tend to do the trick. Plus, while mosquitoes will bite me, they always find much tastier people than me. I get whatever odors I put off. It's not like, okay, that's not good enough. Let's go for Laura. She smells better. No, I mean, because that's how they're attracted to you, is by the odors you put off. Exactly. Sure. So, and that's how they find you. It's not people like they smell your blood. No, they don't smell your blood. They smell your body secretions. Yeah, they're very sensitive. Sure. Yeah, no, it's a shame she got it. I've been fortunate, never had it, and I wouldn't want it. It's when I was in Liberia, we would lose 15% of our workforce from local workforce every single day to malaria. And we had hundreds of people working for us, and 15% would be down from malaria throughout the year because there was just so much malaria there. It's really nasty. Hopefully, we're getting close to a way to solve it. But malaria is a really tricky thing. It's a lot harder than COVID-19 to solve, and so we'll see. We'll see. But yeah, but Malawi is brilliant. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Did you ever go to the Carlsberg Brewery?
The what?
There's a Carlsberg Brewery.
Oh, the
in Malawi,
Carlsberg Brewery.
In Blantyre.
No, I didn't go to the Carlsberg Brewery, but I did go to the tea estate. We went to Cholo. We went to Cholo, and I'll tell you what, that is so, when you're driving through the mountains by the tea estates and you see those long hills of the tea, oh man, it is beautiful. And then we did a sponsored bicycle ride, 500 kilometers from Blantyre to Lake Malawi, which that was really, really awesome. I'm trying to think of what else I did there. Sure, we did so much. But I love the lake. I would go back. I actually want to retire there.
I'm not a water person, but I do like Lake Malawi. Also, on that trip from Blantyre, when we coming down from the long way, you go through the Shire country. It's one of the most beautiful sights I've seen in Africa. But then Blantyre is kind of bland, it's an industrial town. But when you go up from Blantyre up the M3 towards Zomba, and you go on up to the lake, Zomba is pretty interesting because it's got that big mountain right above the town. And I drove up that mountain, and it's a completely different ecosystem. I mean, down on the ground, it was hot and humid. I went up on the mountain; it was very pleasant. It was wet and cool, and very. It's almost like an entirely different ecosystem altogether. But no, Malawi is fantastic. But I'll tell you, it's the only time in Africa I've ever been terrified to drive. In broad daylight, driving for the long way down to Blantyre, every time you go around a curve, there's people and goats and things walking out in the middle of the street because there's only one road. And I'm always terrified I was going to hit somebody. I'm like,
But I tell you what, because I used to take the bus that used to go from my mom's, because they basically had an estate where everybody who worked for Ilova used to live. And they had a van that used to take all the school kids to and from Blantyre every weekend. And that was the most terrifying thing of my life.
Yeah, no doubt.
Because I tell you, that the mist on the mountain was like thick pea soup. And this driver, they just go. And they go around and it's sharp bends like this. And you just sit there going, oh.
And there are accidents, absolutely, yeah. So that's the only place in Africa I've truly been concerned about my driving, and I was going very slow. But I mean, especially if you go at the wrong time, because the elephant grass and such is so tall, people just come out and you don't see them until they're on the road.
Yeah.
Ooh, pretty scary stuff. Anyway, but it is beautiful. The Shire country is amazing. The lake is beautiful. Even the Lilongwe, I mean, it's not bad. It's a spread out. It's an interesting little town. But it's a country that's had its problems. I've done a lot. I lived and worked there. I've done a lot of reporting on Malawi because it's just kind of a special place. For me, I enjoy it. Now, ironically, I've never been north of Lilongwe, just from Lilongwe south, but never north. So anyway.
Okay. Now, but when you were in Lilongwe, was there still a cinema there? Because they've recently closed the cinema in Lilongwe when I was there.
There was a cinema, but I never went to it. And I used to always stay at the what did I stay at there? What hotel was that at? The Cresta. I stayed at the Cresta almost all. The few times I stayed at other hotels over by the Parliament building, the new Parliament building, but usually I stayed in the Cresta. So, and the Cresta was fine, but That's a place where I thought I was going to die. I had it turned out to be a gallbladder, but I thought it was food poisoning. And I was sitting in the Cresta on a Saturday. Or it was a Saturday because I was flying out on Sunday, going down to Blantyre and then back to Lusaka because I was in Lusaka. I was coming out of Lusaka, so that was kind of the route that Malawi Airlines used to fly when they had planes. I don't know if they still fly, but anyway. So I was in the hotel leaving Sunday, but I was in agony. My stomach was killing me on this big king size bed in my room. The air conditioning was working, thank God, because I was sweating and everything. And there was one channel, Super Sport. And all they had in Super Sport that day was a freaking cricket tournament.
Oh, my word.
12 hours of cricket as I lie there in agony. And that's how I learned the rules of cricket, watching that 12-hour tournament while I was in agony. Yeah, it was anyway. So I got back to Zambia and then I flew back to the States the day after that. So
So you've been to a lot of places. So out of all the places that you went to, where was your favorite?
Oh gosh, it has to be place and time dependent. I mean, when I was very young and I was stationed in Germany the first time, everything was new and exciting and so many things. I absolutely loved places I went in Germany. Some of the ones that really stood out were Berchtesgaden, Innsbruck in Austria really stood out for me, and then also Lucerne in Switzerland. But those are places I found amazing. And then in Africa, it just depends. It's time independent where I've been. My first trip to Botswana was unbelievable. It was such an incredible experience. I really enjoyed it. I enjoy going to South Africa, but I really enjoy Pretoria just to go visit Pretoria. I like Cape Town. The mother city is pretty cool, but you got to keep your spidey sense about you. It's even more dangerous than being in Pretoria somewhere else. Durban's interesting, but it's also weird. If you know what I mean. Durban, for me, it's just kind of weird. There's nice parts to it, but it's just, you kind of feel like, I don't know. I don't know how to describe it, but I also like Durban too, because there's a Wyatt Street there. So a street named after Wyatt. Yeah. Yeah. Well, there was an officer in the British forces in the Anglo Zulu War. And so that street, there's this very small street. It's about 100 meters long. It's named after him. That's where there's the War Museum down there. But yeah, Durban's pretty cool. The Drakensberg, unbelievable. Absolutely love it. Absolutely love it. And I love the Mahalisburg. I actually like the Mahalisburg, but I haven't been throughout the Drakensberg. I've driven around it, and I've gone into Royal Town National Park, and I've been, down near Wien and places, but I haven't done the things I want to do in the Drakensberg, like hike, that sort of thing. I've never really done that. So I really can't give full judgment on the Drakensberg because I haven't seen lots of it just from a distance. Whereas the Mahalisburg, I've been all over the Mahalisburg. I absolutely love Mahalisburg. It's just gorgeous. It's beautiful. It's one of the oldest spots on the planet. The rocks there, only places older than Mahalisburg are in Australia. So it's pretty amazing. You can do canopy tours. You can do hot air ballooning. You can do quad bike riding, go horseback riding. It's pretty awesome. So I like it. There's a lot. I mean, I've also been some pretty cool places in Morocco. Interesting places. And if you like Roman ruins, oh my gosh, Tunisia is amazing for Roman ruins, Duga and all these other places, just El Jem, all these places. Yeah, I've been to so many really cool places in my lifetime. But the two places that really stand out outside that are really special for me that I enjoyed is a trip I took to Iceland and the Faroe Islands. Unbelievable. The Faroe Islands especially. The Faroe Islands are the remains of an ancient continent, and they're just a string of several hundred little tiny islands, and they all look like gumdrops. They just come straight up out of the ocean. There's almost nowhere flat around, and it's just beautiful. And about 46,000 people are living there, and they speak Faroese, which is a derivative of medieval Norwegian, but it's its own language. And it's a pretty cool place. We used to have an Air Force base there, surprisingly, in the North Atlantic, but that was there because of the Second World War. Then the Cold War, it was a radar station. But by the time I went to the Faroes, it was long since closed, so there were no military personnel there. But pretty cool stuff, though. So the world's interesting. There's so many things to see and do. Vic Falls is amazing. I enjoyed that. I was in Vic Falls when everything started going to crap and they started murdering farmers and farm workers back in 2000. And it was kind of surreal to be in Vic Falls. And then we go to Bulawayo, where just outside Bulawayo, farm workers are being murdered and farmers are being evicted from their land while I was driving through the country. It was really weird.
And now they're asking them all to go back.
I'll piss on them. They're a bunch of racists. Screw them.
Yeah, they turn around saying, "Oh, we'll pay the white farmers to come back." It's like, yeah, like we're going to come back. Like
pay them what? Hopes and dreams. 1 trillion Zimbabwean dollars. Good Lord.
But I think that they've changed to dollars now. I don't think they use some dollars anymore.
No, they don't. But they have gone back to Zim dollars, but it didn't work. And so informally, people still using dollars. But legally, you're not allowed to use dollars anymore in Zimbabwe. But they're just looking the other way because they'd all be starving. So, for instance, I watched Money Changers the other day, and they were at the Money Changers handing out 20s and hundreds of US. The problem, though, is that when they dollarized and they also used the rand for a while. When they dollarized it, they don't have any change. So everything cost $1 or more. So. Or you buy in bulk, and that really put people at a huge disadvantage. So there was no way to divide the dollar. It's not like you can cut the dollar in half and it's still legal currency, So
and they're not exactly a rich country. I mean, their people are poor, so it's for everything to cost as much as $1. It just
it was a rich country, but not for everybody. But I mean, it has its fans. I mean, Julius is a big fan of Zimbabwe. He likes Zimbabwe. Say hi to Julius. Check out his beret. I'm
sure he does.
Julius has a lovely beret.
And the smile is just so fitting.
It is. It's pretty awesome. I couldn't resist getting that, Anyway.
Oh, Chris, it's been, I don't know why everything just went darker, or is it just me? It's been absolutely fantastic having you. What time is your stream? Because I don't want us to run over time for your stream.
No, we're good. We can go another 10 minutes if you want to go 10 minutes. If you want to have me, and then I'll stop and I'll set up for mine. I've set my stream to start 10 minutes late. Frankly, with YouTube's games, almost nobody's showing up, and so my viewing content is down. So if I'm on time or I'm not in time, so what?
Doesn't make a difference.
No, it does. I mean, because people count on me being there, but it's just kind of frustrating. So YouTube is really, anyway. Yeah. So I have to bring Stress Man out to deal with YouTube.
Yeah, but you missed my comment on your stream the other day when you brought out Stress Man. I said, I'm pretty sure if you threw him at someone, it would be quite a stress relief.
Well, yeah, it'd also be very damaging. I'd probably get arrested for assault. This thing is pretty heavy. I mean, you could probably knock someone out. He's soft, but he's heavy, And I've tried, but this hat won't fit on Stress Man. I've tried it several times. It's too big. It's too big for Stress Man. See? Yeah, so we're gonna get him a small one.
Get a teeny tiny one made. Yeah,
exactly. We'll get a small one for Stress Man, and so one day we'll do interviews with Stress Man and with Julius on the channel at the same time. So see who wins. Anyway,
that could be a good plan. That could be a very good plan. Although my vote would be on Stress Man, though.
I think so too.
I think I'd be slightly biased.
But you never asked me. You haven't asked me yet because we got off track on things. How it is that if I have accomplished things, do I attribute to anything? I think that's a good question. How's that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I would attribute it to my experiences in my childhood, in which I found myself being the underdog or the ostracized or the outsider all the time. So I lived in something like 34 of the lower 48 states before the age of 17, and I went to like 38 different schools. Primary and secondary. I only went to one high school, shockingly. So most of those were in the first 8 years I was in school. And so I was always a skinny kid arriving somewhere else, new, didn't know anybody, didn't have any friends, wasn't from that community. And I had to learn how to adjust and fit in, and oftentimes kids can be cruel, that sort of thing. So what I learned from my childhood is that it's not nice to be treated, or be judged unfairly by others and be treated as if you're an outsider. And so I've always tried to make people feel they're part of the team. And I think that's one of the big reasons why I was successful in a lot I did in uniform, is that I would make sure that people felt they're part of the team and include them and actually listen. So it's interesting because I received an email from someone who just canceled their membership in my channel because they're angry at one of my moderators and they're blaming me for it. But rather than write to me, they went ahead and canceled their membership and then blamed me for the situation. And I hadn't even have a chance to address their situation. And then part of the message was like, well, I'm just one person, so you're not going to pay attention to me. Well, you're wrong. I spent a good 25 minutes reading the 2 emails that you sent me, reread them, make sure I understood what you're saying, and then spent another half hour sending you an email. And yes, you're just one person, but I don't like to see people mistreated. So now if it's the little jackasses are playing the troll game, I don't mind them being mistreated. But no, so I think that part of the reason. So let me give you an example. I got to Uganda, where I was the security cooperation chief, and I had one of my biggest teams in Africa, and I had like probably a dozen people working for me there, which is pretty big for an embassy to do that sort of work. And we paid the salary of one of the public affairs workers, Ugandan. We paid half their salary, and the State Department paid that because the state didn't have enough money to pay it, and they wanted one more person. The guy they hired was Muslim. There aren't a lot of Muslims in Uganda, but it was important to be able to reach the Muslim communities. That's not why they hired him. He's actually very talented. That's just a side benefit that he was Muslim. But my predecessor never used him. And I'm like, wait a second, we're paying half his salary. Isn't he supposed to be doing stuff reporting on our program so that we get, good press? And so him, and then we had an HIV coordinator. We were paying for HIV services for the Ugandans. And my HIV coordinator had never been to a staff meeting for my office. And there was a couple other people. We had someone who was working on a couple other programs. Anyway, a lot of these programs were outside. That was with the HIV tuberculosis research program. Not tuberculosis, Ebola research program that we were spending money on. So all these people were part of my staff. They fell under my responsibility, but my predecessors had never brought them in. And I'm like, that's just dumb. So I called a staff meeting and invite all these people in. And not only some of them came in like, well, you're expecting it. This is probably the thinking, well, gosh, I had to go to this stupid meeting. This colonel wants me to go to this stupid meeting. He's not even going to listen to what I say. So I brought them all in. And then I turned around and I started asking, like, okay, so, Hakeem, what have you got? What have you got, Dad? Huh? You want to hear from me? Yeah. I want to hear from you. Okay. Now, if you spew nonsense, I won't ask again. But if you got something to contribute. So also the other thing that I did too is that I did this in Liberia and I did it in Uganda as well, but other places. But those are two places in particular. Whenever I did things, I tried to make sure that my staff would get a chance to shine so that people could see that they're good at what they're doing. So because I won't always be there, but they might still be working the embassy, and people need to know that they've got skills. If they don't have skills, then we try to find a way to improve their skills. But my point is that most of the people that work for me had the skills. So I always included people. I always try to make sure they got credit for the things they're doing, and always try to promote them. And I think it makes a big difference. To me, that's part of being a leader and part of caring. And I've worked for so many people that weren't like that. They were just disasters and monsters and treated people unfairly and never rewarded people and gave them awards. I had a sergeant that worked for me in Botswana. And I put him in for an award that normally only goes to lieutenant colonels and above or sergeants major. He was a sergeant, very junior. And they rejected it. And I'm like, whoa, this was when the African Command first started. So I wrote to the sergeant major, the senior enlisted person in African Command, said, Sergeant Major, this award was rejected. I don't understand why. I did the format that you guys prescribed because it had just come out. I entered all the information. It's worthy of this award. And he looked at it, he said, let me check into it, sir. And he went back to the awards board and he said, no, you don't do this because this guy's a sergeant. This colonel sent this award, read the award, and the work that this sergeant did is the equivalent of someone much senior. And for that reason alone, he deserved the award, and he got the award. And so I had a similar situation where I had a National Guardsman who worked for me from North Carolina, and I recommended him for the highest evaluation. And those are very coveted because only a few people can get them. And it was sent back to me, and they downgraded it to just he did an average performance. And so I picked up the phone and called the general. I said, sir, what's going on here? He said, what do you mean? I said, what did your staff tell you? This guy is a rock star. I mean, honestly, I'll be honest, I don't like him personally. He's a pain in the ass. But that doesn't mean he's not good at what he does. And so he earned this. And I said, someone on your staff told me that because he's in the reserves, that we don't give those kind of recommendations to people in reserves. And I said, sir, if that's true, that's shameful because we need quality officers in the reserve and National Guard as well. And if they're not getting the evaluations they've earned for their performance and their potential, then we're just getting a bunch of, nobodies, and the next time someone else gets the same rating as him, how do we know he's better than the other person? We don't, because they have the same ratings. Anyway, I won the day. He got it, and he's now Lieutenant Colonel of the National Guard. So good for him.
But I think that's one of the big things with a lot of managers and leaders these days is they don't look at that sort of thing. They don't think of ways to improve their staff. They're like, oh, okay, well, you're rubbish at what you do, so I'm not going to worry about you. I'm just going to ignore you, or I'm going to just reprimand you, instead of saying, well, look, what can we improve on? Do like performance reviews and see where the person excels. See if maybe you can move them into a department where they're going to do better. And work with them to improve them. Instead, they just, they're just not interested. And I think that's half the problem these days. People aren't interested in doing the full capacity of their jobs.
Yeah. Well, I think that's the distinction between management and leadership. A leader sees those things. A manager is just someone that pushes resources around. It's a big distinction. And in Botswana, I had, when I got there, an HIV program manager, and the Botswana Defense Force was mad at my predecessor because he was a devout Christian, and he looked down on Botswana because of the HIV crisis. Like, you guys are screwing everything. That's why you have HIV and all this stuff. So he didn't say that to them, but that attitude carried across. And so when I got there, I had all these appointments scheduled with the commander, with all these generals, and all of them kept getting canceled. I'm like, what the hell? I haven't even met. Why do they keep canceling these meetings? And so I said, you know what? I'm paying for their HIV program, all the money, so I'm gonna do that. So I just started going to HIV things, and then the word spread about this colonel. He's not the same guy, that sort of thing. But I had an HIV program manager, a local national, been hired. My predecessor never called him to the table and expected him to tell him what was going on. He just took his report and filed it. And so they were physically located whoa, I hear a dog.
Sorry, my dogs are barking at Daryl walking out the door.
There
for
were,
some unknown reason.
I'm drawing a blank right now. The CDC, I think CDC or something like that, were physically located with those guys. Had an office that was physically away from the embassy, and so his office was there. And he was under the impression that he was working for them, but we were paying his salary. He was doing things on behalf of the Department of Defense, not on the Centers for Disease Control. So I would go to meetings, and he would keep acting as if he worked for CDC, and I would tell him, "Come do this." And finally, I pulled him aside after about 2 weeks. I said, "Listen, you work for the Department of Defense. Who pays your salary?" You do. I said, well, you keep talking about us, and you're talking about CDC. You're not part of CDC. You just work in their spaces. Now, you can be part of their team, but you're part of this team. And frankly, this guy, I was on the verge of firing him. And I don't fire many people. I was on the verge of firing him a dozen times in the first 2 months. And I just tried to be patient because I saw he's got the potential. He's just not getting the message. And eventually he got the message. And he's still doing that job in Botswana. And by all accounts, from the people in San Diego who are responsible for funding those programs, he's one of the top 3 HIV program managers in the entire continent. So I could have fired him easily with cause, and I didn't, and it worked out. And I tried to mentor him and teach him, and he's doing a great job. So sometimes you stick with it.
Wow.
Whoops, looks like the data's getting crunchy there now. Are you still there? Laura?
Test.
I think that your network is getting a little wonky on you there.
I have just a warning on laptop. Yeah, I think because my battery's dying on my laptop. I'm still here. Can you hear me?
I can hear you now with your camera off. It's a good thing this comes at the end.
I'm here. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
I can hear you.
Okay, well, I'm here. So yeah, I guess we're up at the hour now anyway. So if we're gonna lose the connect, I can hear you now when your camera's off.
Can you still hear me though?
So I mean, I say we're up on an hour. So if we're gonna lose the data, this is probably better now than earlier. I can hear you. You can't hear me apparently. Check your chat.
This whole thing. Oh, is it off? Okay. Yeah. And my battery is my laptop battery is on 6%, so I'm about to die.
All right. Well, then we'll wrap up here, folks. Anyway, thank you for having me as a guest, Laura. I really enjoyed it. I hope you found it informative. I'm happy to come back on another time if you want, because there's a lot of stuff we didn't cover that I'm sure you wanted to ask, but I enjoyed the conversation. And good luck with your channel. Let's hopefully we get you pushed up.
Yes, but I would definitely love to do a stream again.
Okay.
I can hear you.
Yeah, no, let's happy to do it again sometime. Yep. All right. I think she says you can hear me, but I think there's a big delay. So yeah. All right. So
y'all.
Yeah,
my battery is flashing red now. Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Okay. So folks.
Okay. So
all right, folks. I'm going to go ahead.
Hear me, but
I'm going to go ahead and drop off, folks, and thank Laura, and then hopefully she'll look in the chat and see Beth. Get in touch with her, let her know that thanks a lot, and I'll be happy to come back on sometime. So I'm going to go ahead and drop off now, and I've got my show in about 7 minutes. For folks who want to tune in for that, you're welcome to come and watch Chris Wyatt Africa. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Chris.
Really
if you can hear me, thank you so much. We'll definitely do this again.
All right, I can hear you, Laura. Thanks a lot, folks. All right, bye-bye. I'm out of here.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Keep well. Thanks for a lovely stream. Wait, no. Wait. Thanks, everybody. Okay. These are dying and everything, and our power's still not on. Let me see if I put my camera on. Okay. I'll see you all tomorrow. Check out Chris Wyatt, buddy. And my laptop just